Someone has been leaving me threatening notes. I just found out it's my own hand. I keep finding notes in my own handwriting, and I don't remember writing a single one of them. It started in the library, not the notes, but the feeling. The specific, skin-crawling certainty that someone was watching me from the tall, silent stacks of books. I was hunting for sources for a paper on historical architecture, buried deep in a section nobody ever visits. That's where I found it. It wasn't a library book. It was a small black moleskine journal, jammed spine first between two oversized textbooks on Gothic cathedrals. On the cover, in peeling silver ink, were the words, "Do not read." Below that, a name had been violently scratched out. Of course, I opened it. The first page hit me like a punch to the gut. This morning, I told everyone I was going to kill myself. I just stood up in the middle of sociology lecture and said it. And do you know what they did? Nothing. They just stared. I saw it in their faces. Not concern, not even pity, just disgust. Like I'd tracked something filthy into their clean, perfect world. I will never forget the silence, the way none of them moved a muscle to stop me. Jesus. It was raw, ugly, and I couldn't look away. The pages were filled with a looping, desperate script, detailing a life of quiet misery and loud self-hatred. I felt like a trespasser, a voyeur. Halfway through, I slammed it shut. This was too personal, too real. The feeling of being watched intensified, prickling the back of my neck like 1,000 tiny needles. As I closed the book, a small slip of paper fluttered out and landed on the dusty floor. It was a torn piece of binder paper, the kind I used for class. The handwriting on it was different. A clumsy, forceful block print, the pencil pressed so hard it had nearly torn through. "I hate you." My head snapped up. I scanned the narrow aisle, the towering shelves creating long, deep shadows. Nothing. I felt set up, like someone had planted the journal and was waiting in the wings to see what the poor sap who picked it up would do. I snatched the note, shoved it back inside the journal, and slid the whole thing back onto the shelf. I walked away fast, but the feeling of eyes on my back followed me all the way out of the building. The next day, it was in my bag. The little black journal nestled against my laptop. I have no memory of putting it there. For a second, I thought I saw her. A flash of a black dress disappearing around the corner of the lecture hall. But when I looked, the hallway was empty. I spent the entire lecture with my leg bouncing, unable to focus. When I reached into my jacket pocket for my keys after class, my fingers brushed against paper. Another note folded into a tight square. This one in the same angry, childish block letters. "You deserve to die." I looked around the emptying classroom. Just a few students packing their bags, heads down, lost in their own worlds. No one was looking at me. I crumpled the note in my fist until my knuckles were white and threw it in the trash on my way out. Later that night, I took the journal out, planning to march it right back to the library and leave it for good. But I made the mistake of opening it again. The story continued. It was all so painfully familiar. Girl meets boy. Boy falls for the popular girl. Girl gets labeled the weirdo and is systematically ostracized. Standard high school bullshit, until it wasn't. The last few pages took a hard left turn from angsty diary into something else entirely. The girl in the mirror smiles at me now. She has teeth like a shark, and her eyes are just empty sockets, blacker than a well at midnight. I asked her if she was the demon they always warned me about. She just laughed, a sound like grinding glass, and asked if it really mattered. I thought about them, all of them. The ones who laughed, the ones who whispered, the ones who just watched me drown and did nothing. I looked into my reflection's hollow eyes, and I promised her I would burn it all down. The girls who hated me, the boy who broke my heart, and most of all, the people who looked at me with pity, like I was some tragic little sideshow in the circus of their own fucking lives. I will give them one last chance to see me. Until October 5. That's the day I end everything. My phone was on my desk. I pulled up the calendar. October 5th was 2 weeks away. I had to do something. I know how it sounds. Savior complex, whatever. But I felt like I was the one being tested. This person, this girl, was screaming for help, and the universe had put her diary in my hands. So I wrote a note of my own on a fresh sheet of paper and tucked it inside the front cover. Please don't do this. Don't hurt yourself or anyone else. How can I help you? I took the book back to the library and put it on the exact same shelf. The next morning, the lecture hall felt cavernous and cold. I was trying to cram for a pop quiz I knew was coming when the feeling hit me again, the watching. So intense it felt like a physical weight on my shoulders. My eyes fell to the open page of my notebook. There, scrawled across my own notes in thick black Sharpie, were the words, "See yourself out of the world." My blood ran cold. I scanned the rows of seats around me. Most were empty. The few other students present were scattered far from my desk. Who could have done this? Was she in my class? Did she hate me for putting the journal back? Was this a game to her? The notes became a daily occurrence. I started keeping them in a plastic sandwich bag, a growing collection of venom. Kill yourself. You are a waste of air. Why are you still breathing? Die. 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 And with the notes came the glimpses, always in my peripheral vision. A flicker of black fabric, the pale shape of a face turning away just as I looked. Once, I almost got her. I was on a bench outside the student union, and the air suddenly went still and cold. A whisper of movement to my left. A thin girl, all in black, had her hand on my shoulder. The touch was like ice. I flinched so hard I fell backward off the bench. By the time I scrambled to my feet, she was gone. Then it went from threats to, I guess you'd call it, attempted murder. I was in the studio, working on a project, and took a long drink from my thermos. The taste was wrong. Bitter, acrid, chemical. I spat it out instantly, my throat burning. It smelled faintly of bleach. Not enough to kill me, I don't think. Just enough to be a warning, a message. I can get to you anytime. I can do whatever I want. I poured the rest down the drain. I didn't go to the campus police. What would I say? That a ghost girl I've never actually spoken to is trying to poison me? They'd think I was crazy. I went back to the library, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. The journal was still there. I grabbed it, opened it on a nearby table, making a show of it, letting anyone who might be watching see me. And then I felt it. The cold presence hovering just behind my chair. I tucked the journal into my backpack and said, loud enough for the whole room to hear, "I'm trying to help you. Just tell me how." A few people looked up. I felt my face burn, but I didn't care. I walked out with the book. The answer came that night. I live in a first-floor apartment. I know I should be more careful, but I sometimes leave the window cracked for the cool night air. I woke up with something cold and sharp pressed against my throat. For a few terrifying seconds, I was completely paralyzed, tangled in my sheets, my heart trying to beat its way out of my chest. It was like those night terrors I used to get as a kid, where you're awake but your body is still asleep. Finally, with a choked gasp, I bolted upright. Something heavy clattered onto the hardwood floor. A cold breeze ghosted in from the wide-open window. Lying on the floor beside my bed, gleaming in the moonlight, was one of my own kitchen knives. And on my nightstand, on the top page of my notepad, a fresh message in that same ugly scrawl. The only salvation is death. The campus police were useless. They told me to lock my windows and took my vague description of a thin girl in a black dress. They asked about the diary, but I lied and said I didn't have it. I knew if I gave it to them, I'd lose my only connection to her. My only chance to stop this. I wanted to be the one person who didn't fail her, even if it meant putting myself in danger. Maybe that's why she picked me. She left her pain out in the open for someone to find, wanting to punish whoever dared to look, but also secretly hoping they would care. Poisoning my drink, holding a knife to my throat, it didn't feel like a real attempt to kill me. It felt like a child screaming for attention. Look at me. Look at my pain. I felt more pity for her than fear. The countdown notes continued. OCT over 5 is the end. 10 days, 9 days. I couldn't do this alone. With 9 days left, I took the journal back to the library, not to the shelf, but to the reference desk. I showed the librarian the book and the bag of notes. I told her I was being threatened, and I needed to find out who this girl was before she did something terrible. The librarian, a stern-looking woman with kind eyes, examined the hateful notes. "The person who wrote this," she said, pointing at the journal, "is not the same person who wrote these." I blinked. "What do you mean?" "The handwriting. It's completely different." She was right. I felt like a complete idiot. The diary was written in a flowing, if erratic, ballpoint pen. The notes were all block capitals, written with different pens, pencils, Sharpies. How had I not seen it? "Okay," I said, my head spinning, "but I still need to find her. The girl who wrote the diary. I think she's going to kill herself on October 5th. I flipped to one of the last, most unhinged pages. "They'll see the pain spill out of me flowing crimson, and it will stain them. The stain will spread forever. This is very disturbing," the librarian murmured. She took the book and squinted at the scratched-out name on the cover. I'd tried to decipher it myself, but it was a mess. "Looks like the first name starts with an M, and the last name with a V." She turned to her computer. "Let me check the old student directories." A few minutes later, she called me over. Found her. Her name was Morwen Vesper. "Was?" I asked, a cold dread seeping into my bones. "Do you have a way to contact her?" The librarian's face was grim. "No. I'm sorry. Why not? Is her information private or something?" "Because," she said, turning the monitor toward me, "Morwen Vesper committed suicide 10 years ago. On October 5th, she showed me the article from the old campus digital archives. A grainy photo of a solemn-faced girl in a black dress, staring out from the screen with an unnerving intensity. She hadn't just threatened it, she'd done it. And no one had stopped her. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. I'd imagined a confrontation, a tearful conversation, a breakthrough. I'd imagined saving her. But there was no one to save. I stared at the hollow eyes in the picture and felt a profound, crushing sadness. She didn't want to die. Not really. She wanted someone to prove her wrong about the world. "I'm sorry," the librarian said gently. I just nodded, took the diary, and retreated to a table. I was back at square one. Morwen was dead. So who the hell was leaving me notes? A copycat? Some sick friend of hers playing a decade-long prank? And who was the girl in black I kept seeing? A ghost? I don't believe in ghosts. I don't. The familiar prickle started on my arms, the cold spot in the air behind me, the feeling of being watched. I was sitting in my room later, the diary and the bag of notes spread out on my desk like evidence from a crime scene. I was staring blankly at my dark laptop screen, trying to make sense of it all, when I saw it. In the reflection. It was my own hand. My hand, holding a pen, moving calmly across a page in my notebook. I watched, frozen, as my own fingers formed the clumsy, angry letters. "You should have left me alone." The world tilted. I snatched the notebook. The ink was still wet. I scrambled through the bag of notes, my hands shaking. I found the one written on a torn corner of a syllabus from my history class. I grabbed the syllabus from my binder. The jagged edges matched perfectly. They were all like that, scraps of my own paper, written with my own pens. The memories started to surface, hazy and dreamlike. My own hand slipping the journal into my bag. My own hand pouring a few drops of bleach from the laundry room into my thermos. My own hand taking the knife from the kitchen block and carrying it into my bedroom. I've been doing this to myself, all of it. I burned the diary tonight. I took it out to the barbecue pit behind my apartment building, and I watched the pages curl and turn to black ash. It was a stupid, desperate gesture. An attempt to protect the next person who might have found it. But it was too late for me. I can see her now. Morwen. She isn't just a flicker in the corner of my eye anymore. She's a constant presence, a shape of cold air in my room. She stands behind me when I sit at my desk. I feel her ice-cold fingers wrap around my wrist when I try to write. The notes were in block capitals because it's hard to write neatly when someone else is guiding your hand. She doesn't hide anymore. No one else can see her. They just see me. She won't let go of my hand. I've tried to fight, to write my own words, but she just pushes back, stronger every time. Her thoughts bleed into mine. Whispers of how they all watched. How I watched, too. How I kept reading. How I saw her drowning and dove in after her. It was too late for her. It's too late for me. She's writing this now, through my fingers. Yo, you saw me drowning, you kept reading, OCT 5.